The biggest mistake I see people make when using a tap is that they go too far. And what I mean by that is that they run the tap in till maybe here before they ever pull the tap back out. And that is a massive, massive mistake. Now, we're going to be tapping a few holes on this here block, and I'm going to show you step by step exactly what I'm doing and why I'm doing it when we use this tap, so that way you know how to use these properly without making any mistakes and minimize damaging one or breaking one off inside of a hole, which will cause you a whole world of problems. This is our old bolt, and then this is just a die. What we're going to do is run our bolt through the die so that way we can get our size that we need. So this one fits on there perfectly. You can see I can spin it back and forth. So if I take the bolt out and I look at this, this is, you're not going to be able to read that, but it is an 8mm by 1.25. So that means that we need an 8mm by 1.25 tap. And if we put our bolt onto here, you might not be able to see that. It's kind of blurry, but the bolt and the threads on the tap are exactly the same, so that is the tap that we need. Now let's go start with our first one. So we're going to start with this one right here. I'm going to move this block forward to where we can get to it. The first thing that we need to do is we need to get this here lubricated. So we're going to take some PB Blaster, we're going to take some Kroll, we're going to take some kind of a drilling lubricant and squirt it into that hole because we want to keep this lubricated at all times. Getting it started is probably one of the more difficult parts of the task. So like, look at this. So this is a snap-on tap and this is a Napa tap. And the cheaper taps are going to be way more difficult. Like if you look at how much bigger the tap is, the Napa tap compared to the snap-on. So this one is going to make it so much easier to get started, but the problem is that this one's broken. So you know, the tip of it has a nick out of it, and I do not have a snap-on place near me in order to get this replaced, so I have to try and start it with this, which this is very difficult to get started because of how big the front of it is. You know, the smaller the front, look at how much smaller that is. That is going to make it way easier. I might even see if I can get kind of like the first two grooves started right here. If I can get the first two started with this, then I can switch over to this, but we just do not want to break this tip off inside there because that would be a massive catastrophe. But let me see if I can get one or two threads started with this one, and then like you can see, so you see how far this one like actually goes in there and is like ready to be, you know, start threading, whereas this one, it barely goes in there, and when it does, it's not eating because it's so big. It's a cheap tap. So that is something to note with the taps. Now let me see about getting this started. Getting it started, we just want to put pressure straight on the top of it, and you're gonna kind of wobble back and forth with it as you get it started. But you know, once you know, you can start kind of like wobbly, but once you get the first thread started, you should be able to straighten it out and then be able to dig in and get a thread started. Once you get the thread started, then the rest of it is just making sure that the tap is straight with the hole, and then it's just in and out, in and out, in and out. So let's get this one started, and then we will show you what I'm talking about when I'm saying going in too far for too long. That is very important. Do not forget that I said that earlier. Now, the next thing that we want to do is that we want to take our tap and we're going to take some grease on the tap and we're going to put grease on it. And this is because the grease is going to help collect shavings. So as we run the tap in here, it will collect metal shavings, and then we will be able to pull it out and pull the metal shavings out. Notice all of the metal that I have already pulled out. So this is what I'm talking about when you go too far. You see all that metal? You want to now take this out, and we're going to be spraying it off with some contact cleaner, just brake cleaner, and mainly you just want to get that out of there. Because if you leave that metal there, as you run the tap in, that metal can then bend over and get in between the tap threads and the threads that you already have made in the hole. And when you do that, it can bind it up, and it can cause you all kinds of trouble. And usually that is when you bind it up and you snap the tap. So run it in maybe 2 threads, maybe 3, and then pull it back out, clean your threads off, re-grease it, spray this out with contact cleaner, and also spray it with some kind of oil, Kroll, PB Blaster, tapping or cutting oil. Doesn't really matter as much as that you don't do it dry and that you keep everything lubed up and greased up and cleaned. This is the right one. This thing's actually going to start. Once you actually get it started, like honestly, like this Napa tap, this is like worthless. I couldn't even get this thing started because it has no, it's not rounded enough. Whereas the Snap-on, that thing started right up. So I got this thing started, and what you're going to want to do is you're going to have your handle on here. You're going to go a little bit and cut, then you're going to back off, and then you're going to come again, and you're going to feel it like it's going to stop. You're going to twist that much, like not much at all. You're going to cut and back off, cut, 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 and you're going to make your way around. And I would say every, one revolution, or basically one revolution, you're going to want to take the tap all the way out of here. That way, you see all that metal that I was talking about? We're going to want to clean this off every rotation or every 2 rotations, depending on how far in you are. This is a crucial step. If you try and just go like 3 or 4 rotations, you're going to build this metal up to where it'll get in between the threads of the tap and where you are tapping, and that will bind it up, and you will break this tap. The main other way that you break a tap is that you go in crooked. So if you are crooked on the hole and you go in, you're going to pull until you are so far that you're going to put muscle to it and then snap the tap. So now we need to clean this off. I'm going to try and go a little bit farther in with the Snap-on tap, and then I'm going to back it out, and I want to switch up to try and use the Napa tap, because Yeah, our snap-on one is broken, but at least we got the hole started, whereas with this tap I couldn't even start the hole. So this tap is essentially worthless to me because you can't start the hole. You need one of these in order to start it. So a cheap tap might not be even able to get you going. So definitely a quality tap is what you're going to need. Again, I am emphasizing the importance of pulling this thing out. That is one rotation around, and that is a lot of junk on the tap. So we're going to, again, you just put the tap down, and we're going to take some contact cleaner and spray all the metal off of the tap, so that way none of that stuff can get in there, bind up, and cause us a problem that's going to, you know, break the tap or ruin the threads as we're making them. So very important to continue to keep the hole clean and to continue to keep the tap clean. Pull all this metal out. It's gonna, yeah, it takes a lot longer to do, but if you break a tap off in one of these or you mess up those threads, if you break the tap, that's a catastrophic problem. But if you just run the threads, then you've got to drill it out bigger and put a Healy coil in there. So just something to talk about whenever we're talking about taps. And now we can start to look in here and see, kind of difficult to see on the camera because I can't really focus on it, but we've got a lot of good threads started. This is starting to look really, really good. Let me stick a bolt in there so you can kind of see how much it's working. The bolt, there we go. That's about as far as I've made it. So that's a good 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 6 threads in. So We're really moving along now. I'm going to go ahead and switch up to the Napa tap and see if I can get this Napa tap to work the way I want it to. Unfortunately, yeah, I do have my good tap's been broken, so that's very unfortunate. I've got a new one coming, but yeah, you really need a good tap, so definitely consider that. This is the next part where you see a lot of people start to mess up, because you get about halfway down the tap and you kind of get a rhythm going and people start to feel very comfortable with the situation that's going on. And it's a lot easier to start putting leverage on the end of the handle, and then also to be trying to bite too much off. You still only want to go, like I've gone back, I come forward and I'm hit the wall right here. You only want to go like that much. That's it. Like that's it. You want very, very small movement and then back it off, come to the wall again, cut just a smidgen and back it off. You don't want to try and start taking, you know, a hand like this. You don't want to try and start taking a 1/4 inch of bite off of there, because that's when it binds up and snaps. So again, it gets tedious, but you want to be these small hits like this, and then leverage on the middle. You want to turn from the middle, not from the end of the handle. If you turn from the end of the handle, you put tension on it and you can snap it. So again, go about 1 revolution or 1.5 maybe. I would say to stick to 1, and then back this thing out of here, so that way we can clean it off. So I've gone about 1, try and get this thing out, and you should be able to start getting this thing to where you can turn it by hand. Like I'm all the way into where I can go by hand, but look at all that stuff that's built up already. You know, that's a lot. You do not want to mess up your threads by getting that stuff up into your threads. Another thing is that the grease, remember when we get towards the back, like we're almost to the back now, and grease does not compress. So the grease is only on the tap to catch the metal shavings. So don't go overboard with the grease. You basically just want to kind of keep it towards the end and just on the threads. You know, you don't need to cake it full of grease. But now we need to spray this out with contact cleaner, put some PB Blaster in there again, and then we're going to probably be close to the end of this hole right here, but hopefully we make it to the end without any problems, so we'll find out right now. This is also a good time to kind of look down in here and see where we're at. Very difficult to see with the camera. I'll try and zoom in on that, but you want to look down in to the hole and see what you can see, what we're looking at, and kind of gauge, because you can get off center. So you want to make sure you're on center, as well as you can see if there's any threads that are pulling off. So you can pick any threads that are in there out with a any kind of little pick or something like this. You can kind of pick it out if you got a thread that pops up. So just that's kind of why you only want to go 1 rotation at a time, so that way you can pull it out, inspect it, and make sure you can eliminate any problems that could arise as you're doing this. But we are almost to the back. Let me go ahead and get to the back and see if our bolt will fit properly. Once you get to the end, you should be able to feel it. I mean, you can kind of feel, like you can see the tap is starting to twist. So if you start to see the tap start to twist, you most likely have reached the end, and you want to back that thing out of there, so that way we can clean it, inspect it, and then put some grease on a bolt and run a bolt in there and see to make sure, you know, how far our bolt goes. What we're going to do is we're going to take our bolt and we will actually run a bolt into one of our other holes. So like, let's say this one, if I run the bolt up in here, let me get this thing started. So there we go. We want to run this bolt all the way in and see how far it goes until it stops, because most likely, like right there, I'm pretty much at the end of the bolt. That is going to be the end. I'm going to have some thread sticking out of the end of it. If I put a wrench on here, I'm sure I can get a couple more turns. Okay, so right there, that's the end. I can feel I can feel with my hand that that is bolted and bottomed out. So I know that we've got like 3 or 4 threads that stick out. So now let me back this out, and then I'm going to stick it into here. Okay, and we have bottomed out, and we have about 2 threads sticking out. So boom, that is a successful tap. And then now I just need to do the rest of these. We're gonna fix this one on the next video. So on the next video, it'll be all about this entire process. So don't miss that one. Hit that subscribe button.